Hey everybody, welcome to Housechurch on Side Week. And this week we kind of picked up where Nathan left off. Last week he talked about the solution to the big problem. And he talked about the fact that the solution is severe, the solution is complex, but it's also beyond our wisdom and beyond our power. And so this week, that leads me to my light bulb, or my question mark, which is, what is the big problem? And what we came up with and what we talked about is that the big problem is called sin. But it might not be exactly with what we were thinking about before if someone talks about sin. So it's not as much about the little naughty things that we do here and there, but it is so much more complex, so much more severe, and so much more beyond our understanding than that. But to get a bit of a feel for it, to get a bit of an understanding of it, this big problem is that sin is like this power, this dominion that is completely oriented against the reality that God has created. And so within that framework, I choose to do wrong, partially because I'm just part of that, kind of like I live in a place that's been contaminated. There's birth defects associated with that, but there's also just a different reality that is associated with that. Things that make sense to do from the dominion of sin don't make sense in the reality of God. And so we realize how big and complex this is, that we can't possibly do anything to fix this problem because it is such a big, pervasive problem within our whole way of thinking, within our whole world. And this problem is severe, this problem is complex, and it's so much beyond our wisdom and our power to do anything about that. This is what the cross addresses, is this huge problem of sin. So my light bulb comes when I understand that these two aspects of sin, I guess if that's how we want to talk about it, this aspect of the things that I do that are wrong, that are against God, but also this whole big power, this alien power that's part of the world, how they interplay off of each other. So I kind of create more of a problem every time I do something that's against God. But I do something that's against God because I'm part of this dominion and this is the reality that I live in. And so it just kind of continues to escalate, continues to feed off each other and interplay back and forth. And so the light bulb for me is, wow, this is like a humongous problem. It's so much beyond what I could possibly understand, and how on earth are we going to see a solution to it? We definitely need to be saved. We need to be rescued. We need to have something much stronger than us come in and save us from this massive problem. Then that comes into our arrow, and for me the arrow comes with this new word that we learned on Sunday, which is rectification. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means and just remind you of what we said about it. So rectification is the setting drastically right of something gone horribly wrong. But it isn't just setting it right as in punishing the person who did wrong and saying, oh, that made it right because now they've paid for their mistake or they've suffered the consequences. And it's not even setting it right in a way of just helping the people who were wronged. Now you've been helped, you've been compensated for the pain and suffering that you've been through. That's kind of within our wisdom and within our power to do. This is much bigger than that. It's not just something that brings closure after a lot of time and talking through it and healing. And even the idea of when something is broken and then made right, there aren't any scar tissue. So even if we think about this being like breaking a bone or something like that, when the bone heals, you can still see where it healed. You can still see the scar tissue, even though your leg might be fine or whatever bone you broke. But rectification is that there is no scar tissue. There is no evidence that has ever been broken. Everything has been made right. Rectification is the power of God to make right what's been made wrong. And that's a really powerful concept for us, I think. And so as I go from that and walk in that understanding, my arrow in my response is just this incredible gratitude for the fact of what it took, what it cost Jesus, and what it took, what kind of power it took to set it right, not just to make amends, not just to say sorry and still be upset about things, but to actually make it right. To be able to look at something from after it's been made right and say, isn't it marvelous what the Lord has done in this situation? That it is absolutely right. And so there's this gratitude and this joy, understanding of this big thing that we've been saved from, but not just saved and traumatized by and all these other things, but it's been made right. And so that rectification idea is something that allows us to jump into joy, jump into celebration, and move forward. So have fun discussing that and figuring out even how to spell rectification and all those things, with this being a new word. But also spend time, because it's Side Week, spend time praying for each other, and maybe even basking in the joy and the gratitude of the things that God has saved us from, in the big things and the little things in our lives that we recognize. Have fun chatting.